Good morning. It is September 26th on a Monday morning, 9:01 a.m. And today's show, get a audio confirmation here. Yeah, okay, so that's working. Today's show, Windows Daily 62, the solution after Nuke and Pave failed to fix Windows update failure. Recently, just within the last few minutes, I added this extra content at the beginning of the description because I know people are going to ask, what make and model computer was that? There were two computers involved in this explanation of what happened after Saturday's live stream. Saturday's live stream. By the way, let me say this up front. Hold your questions till the end. After I give the explanation of what all happened, then I'll ask for questions, and I'll take the questions in chat after that. So I will be going back to chat for questions, but hold the questions till the end because it's likely that I might cover the question that you're going to ask, and then I got to read through that and say, well, I already answered that, and so we'll try to save us all from having to go through that. Now, because some people watching this video might not have watched the Saturday video, the Saturday live stream, where I talked about this computer that was failing Windows updates. That live stream was called Examining Another Sick Computer. And I really didn't do any work on it on Saturday trying to fix it because I told you at the beginning of that show that I was already decided to do a wipe and reload and rebuild the computer from scratch. That didn't work. That failed. So what I'm going to do here is tell you the story of the progression, but I'll make a long story short to begin with and give you the summary. I returned a different computer to the client yesterday, made the deadline, and it's exactly the same as what she's used to, except that it works. The Windows update works, and it's faster and zippier. But I had to go through a lot of turmoil to get to that point. The problem with the computer is it was failing Windows updates, but it was working. As long as I postponed updates, she could continue using the computer, and it worked fine. A little slow. Not so much that she was complaining about, but the main issue was that we need Windows updates to be current. So because I have worked on that computer in the past with Windows updates problem, last time I worked on it, I just postponed the updates, kicked the can down the road. And then when that expired, it tried to do the updates again. It got into a looping condition where the computer it would download the updates, it would install the updates, we get the message on the screen, installing updates, needs to reboot, it would reboot, and it would give message installing updates, and then it would reboot again, like this is going to be the final startup of Windows, that it should work, right? And then we get a message saying, updates failed, we're undoing changes and reverting back, something like that. So the updates were failing again. Now, I could have, when they called me in on Wednesday, I think it was, I could have just postponed the updates, and I did postpone the updates, but I intended to go pick it up on Friday, which I did, bring it into my lab, and not find the solution, because I'd already worked on that computer. I was convinced I'm just going to do a wipe and reload and be done with it, because that computer has had a long life already, but that failed. That plan failed. What I wound up doing is taking parts from that computer, putting them in another computer, giving it back to her with her original configuration, all of her desktop, everything identical. So how did I get to that point? Could I have made a video of all of this? I could have. However, I did recordings, and I'm going to show you the recordings here. I'm not going to play them. All these were highlighted in blue. Look at this first one. That's Saturday's date, 3:34 p.m. And that, I think that was after I had actually done the wipe and reload. Deleted the partitions from the drive, done a fresh install of Windows 10, and then installed updates, and that failed. All of these are other videos of actual screen recordings. I did not record my physical labor on the computer. Yeah, you'll see things in here that are anywhere from minutes up to an hour 15, 50 minutes. I haven't tried adding up all those numbers. I don't care to know, because most of that I wasn't recording my work. Most of that is recording screen time, things happening. So I'm going to tell you the process of what happened. Monday night armchair quarterbacking. Monday night armchair quarterbacking. Now that's when somebody watches football and they know all the answers. They tell the coach what the coach should have done after seeing the results of the game. So my Monday night armchair quarterbacking of this thing, if I could talk to the Doug of Saturday morning and tell him what I know now, I would have said, Doug, all you need to do is pull that SSD out of the old computer, put it in that computer that was recently decommissioned, the HP Pavilion that I replaced with a brand new Dell 7000 for one of the senior attorneys in this law office. Put the SSD in there and then use the AVG removal tool to clean out all of the old remnants of AVG, and then do the Windows updates. They'll work. You'll be done with it. Put it back in. Bada boom, bada bing, would have been fine. However, on Saturday, after the live stream, I did not have the knowledge of what I know now. I could have thought of doing that, that process, but I didn't. I was kind of focused on fixing that computer. Wipe and reload on that computer. I was ready and content with doing that. So what happened? When I did the wipe and reload, deleted all the partitions on that drive and installed Windows 10 from a USB memory stick that I had on hand, and I wasn't sure if it was the most current. So I installed that, did the Windows updates. The Windows updates failed with the exact same symptom of downloading updates, installing them, progress screen, reboot, progress screen. Now, one of the comments that was made on Saturday was that this should go pretty fast for reinstalling. No, because of the processor on this computer, it was pretty slow. And I went into Task Manager and watched it. The CPU was pegged at 100%. Hard drive and memory and internet network activity, just very minimal. This thing was just pegged on the CPU. That was an HP Pavilion P6 2220T Pentium processor. And so it was just pegged. So the CPU is the bottleneck. When I had upgraded this computer to an SSD and 16 gigabytes of memory from the previous spinning drive and 4 gigabytes of memory, the user reported, yeah, it seems a little faster. Not a great big deal, because you put a super fast SSD, well, it wasn't super fast by SSD terms, but way faster than a spinning hard drive. That just frees up the bottleneck of that spinning hard drive, but now you have the bottleneck of that CPU, that everything has to filter through that. So she wasn't feeling all of the improved performance of the SSD because of the slower CPU. So I'm waiting long processes for each of these steps, right? So the updates fail. Then I think, all right, I'll do make a fresh thumb drive. I checked first WinVer to see what it was at, and it turns out I did have the most recent. So that extra step of doing it again, I should have investigated that a little bit more, because I did another full fresh install and it still failed. So then I'm thinking there's something wrong with this computer because of its age. So I'm thinking of BIOS. So I go look for BIOS updates. There's no BIOS updates available for this. As a matter of fact, on HP's website for drivers, there never was a BIOS update for this. This was from the days before BIOS updates were being put out by HP as part of their drivers. Because there was a point in time where that started happening around the Windows 10 era, and then their BIOS updates are always available through HP updates now. But this computer was made for Windows 7. It had a Windows 7 label on it. When I went to the HP website, there were no drivers for Windows 10 at all. I tried to even do the driver updates from the website for this computer, let it automatically do it, and it couldn't do it because it's insisting that I select from these operating systems and Windows 7 and Windows 8. Excuse me, it's Windows 7 and Windows 8 they had drivers for, not Windows 10. So then so I can't get a BIOS update. Now, could I go look at the serial number of the motherboard and find it through the manufacturer? Yeah, but no, I'm not going to go that deep on this. Because I knew I had a plan B in my back pocket. The plan B in my back pocket was to put the computer back in service, kick the can down the road for updates, and then try to get the company to buy another new computer for this staff member, telling them, look, this computer's not going to keep up with Windows updates. If we keep kicking the can down the road with Windows updates, we're probably going to run into a crisis situation. So I was going to try to talk them into doing a new computer. That was my back pocket. So next thing I look at, I think, aha, I remember I did have one occasion where putting in a PCIe network adapter solved the Windows updates problem for a computer that had, integrated Ethernet. So I did that. Yeah, this is a brand new Ethernet PCIe board that I had on hand. So I put it in and still failed to do the updates. I disabled the integrated network card, installed the drivers for, well, this driver was automatic through Windows 10, easy. I had also already by this time done all of the optional updates, because the optional updates did have a bunch of chipset drivers and other stuff that would be appropriate for the motherboard, because Windows 10 does a good job of that these days in the optional updates. So installed all of those, still failed the updates. I think I may have done another fresh install, still failed the updates. So I think, okay, it's this computer. I've got a fresh Windows 10 on this SSD. I'll try putting it into the other computer that I had on hand that I recently decommissioned. That was this one, the HP Pavilion 500-267C. It's an i3-4130. So that was a decommissioned computer that we had purchased Dell Optiplex 7000 as a replacement for it. So I had that here. Some of you know that computer as the one that we were going to possibly return to troubleshooting on. I figured, well, that's probably going to do the updates, no problem, because it doesn't have that obsolete hardware. So I put it in there and no dice. It still fails the Windows updates. So then I did a fresh, let's see, did I do fresh? Yeah, I did a fresh Windows 10 install on that computer and it worked. So now, saying that right? That piece I'm having a little bit of doubts about. Let me move on past it. Maybe I'll be able to clarify that. No, I think that must have been it. I think it must have worked. However, at that point in time, I've had too much of the weekend go by. I didn't have time to do a full rebuild on this new computer. So I'm looking at other options and possibility of what's going wrong. And then I realized that the update that was failing on the newer computer was a different update than on the old computer. And on the old computer's SSD, when I put it in the new computer, it was a different update that was failing. It was a security update that was failing. Then I remember, oh, there were some remnants of AVG still in the mix, still around. So I put the SSD into the newer computer and I move over the network card just in case that the network card on both of those older computers were a problem. Put that in the newer computer. And I moved the 16 gigabytes of memory from the older computer to the newer computer, which at that time had 8 gigabytes. But the 16 gigabytes that I had installed a month ago was a matched pair. So I moved those over. The SSD in the new computer, and then download and run the AVG removal tool. And that successfully uninstalls the AVG elements, and then the new computer is fine. Works with Windows updates just fine. It's zippy. Now, another piece of this whole process that I hadn't mentioned yet is that after giving, oh yes, here it is. After moving the SSD with the fresh Windows 10 into the new computer and being successful with the updates, since it didn't have the AVG elements, then I did a restore of the full image that I did on my client's, the state of the computer when I brought it in from their office. I restored that. That took a long time because of the slower CPU on the old computer. In hindsight, would have been better to do that, perform that restore operation on the newer computer. But I did it on the old one. So after doing that restore operation and putting that into the new computer, I thought this is going to work, but it failed. Took a little while before I realized and remembered about the AVG piece of it. So I uninstalled the AVG, and then that worked. So I got the computer all put back together and delivered back to the client shortly after that last video. So it was somewhere around 3 o'clock that I returned it to the client's office. So about 13, 14 hours from when we ended the live stream yesterday to when I returned the computer to their office without needing any follow-ups. It's done, working perfectly. I don't need to go back and revisit that computer. The client, would have been thrown for a loop with a fresh rebuild because the icons on the screen are going to be different, and would be a little bit flustered with that. So getting it back to her looking and feeling exactly the way it was, except a little bit faster, I was very happy with that solution. Now, 13, 14 hours of my time though. I don't charge all of that because I'm only charging for the time that I actually had to be interacting with the computer. So that came out, I guesstimated that at 3 hours. I'm $115 an hour to my clients, which is, some of you gag and choke when you hear that, but that's really below market rate. My competition I know is higher than that. I leave it at the lower rate because I'm making enough money and I like my clients. I don't want to lose any because of raising the rates, and I like keeping them on board. I like having this regular clientele. So I just sit right there. And I'm okay with that. Now, the catch of it is even though 3 hours is a fair representation of the work that it took for me, I was chained to my lab here for that whole period of time because it isn't where I started a process and come back 10 hours later. I would start a process and come back 20 minutes later. I'd set up timers on my smart speaker to check on it. So I could go into another room, do something else, and I know that I wouldn't forget to go check on it because I got a timer set to go check on it. So I have to go check on it periodically and then do the next step and then think about something else. And all the time that I'm away from this room, I still have that going through my mind. So there was a law office movie once upon a time when the new junior attorney is trained by the senior attorney. Look, if you're thinking about that client when you're taking a shower, when you're driving a car, that's billable time. You're working the case. When I'm away from the computer, I've got it on my mind, thinking things through. Wish I would have come up with this idea sooner because it would have saved a lot of time and struggle. So when I found that the fresh install did not solve the update problem on the old computer, the things I was thinking of was Windows 10 drivers, since HP doesn't have drivers for that computer. The BIOS update was a piece of it. The network integrated Ethernet on the motherboard was a potential issue. The SSD in that older computer that was prior to SSDs, and the BIOS doesn't understand SSD. Could that be an issue? And I said, no, because this computer was having Windows Update problems before I put the SSD in. I think there were other thoughts on my mind of what could be going on. Since I was doing video recordings and had my capture device connected to it, and that caused some display driver differences. I thought, could that be causing an issue? Maybe. But really, the bottom line things that were involved, the extra time required because of the slow CPU, but that wasn't causing the problem. The AVG remnants was a big critical point. Now, uninstalling the AVG residual elements and keeping the drive in the old computer. Is there anything preventing that option from working? I don't think so. I think that would have been okay. But by that point in time, when I realized that, hey, I can put this in this computer that's been decommissioned, I've previously told you that it's mine to do with as I please. Yeah, but I please here to give the client a better solution. So now I have this. Now I have this older P2220 P6-2220T to do with as I please. I got a balcony out of the back of my house. Is that what I please to do with it? Have I given a fair accounting and a reasonably thorough accounting what happened? I think so, probably. So I'm going to bring up chat, see if you have any specific questions that I haven't covered. So this is the time to go ahead. If there's something I haven't covered, you want to put it into chat now. I'm seeing that at 9:23 is when the last thing here is. So I'm going to take a glance through here. Of course, put in the question marks or the orange. Don't throw it from the balcony, Chris says. I don't think so. I might have something that I can do with it. I'm kind of glancing through here. I'm not going to actually read through all of this. And so if you got a question that maybe you've already put it in again fresh so that I can take that on. I do have the auto redirect set up for Ken Stout's live show. Take that to the computer. Don't throw it from the balcony. Take it to the shooting range. Well, registry cleaners, I've kind of walked away from them over the years. If that's what you're implying, no, that's not what I'm implying. That used to be famous registry cleaner. No, much better than registry cleaner for removing AVG. Do a Google search, AVG removal tool, or whatever it is that you want to remove. If you can get a removal tool specifically from the manufacturer of the software you're trying to remove, that will always be better than CCleaner or some utility like that. And that's what I used. It did a beautiful job of it. Now, I have had times in the past where the manufacturer's removal tool fails to remove the product. Oh, here's another thing I should mention. The AVG was an obsolete version of AVG. It was not even running. It had been disabled on the computer. However, when the update failed and the computer would reboot and it would uninstall or try to revert changes, there was a screen among that process where there was an AVG black DOS type screen indicating that AVG was doing something, even though AVG had been disabled on the computer. So that's what had brought my attention to AVG. Now, another thing that should have been part of my evaluating a computer that's having problems would have been to go through the programs list to see what programs were installed, because AVG was showing in there. as being installed in the computer. It was only disabled. I didn't realize that because when I looked at the notification icons in the bottom right of the screen, there was no other antivirus software. I did look at that. But AVG was still somewhere, somehow involved and active at some level. In the olden days, Win 7 antivirus software often included instructions to disable the antivirus while doing software updates. Yeah, good point. This was already disabled in the startup folder, task manager, and then the startup tab, it was showing in there as disabled. I'm not doing that anymore because leaving dead registry keys are just that, dead keys. Yeah, I don't worry too much about cleaning up residual stuff in the registry. I'm thinking of that as marginal work. There's a lot of things you can do on a computer to allegedly clean it up, but the improvements that you might encounter with that they're just so marginal, minor, that it's not worth charging my clients for that, in my considered opinion. Give it to someone who needs a computer. I don't like doing that because the problem with it is if I give it to somebody who needs a computer, they have troubles with it, they call me and expect me to fix it for free since I gave it to them for free. So no, I don't do that. If I'm not going to do something with it productive, then it goes to electronics recycling. They can only be, now I admire, pat them on the back for the people who refurbish computers and then give them to families in need, but I'm not in that environment. I need to generate income from my work. I'm not at a position in life where I can fix computers, spend my time fixing computers, not earning money, and then give them away. That's something that wealthy people, I'm not going to say they're wealthy, but they have time on their hands that they can do that kind of thing. I appreciate you. Pat you on the back for doing it. I'm not in that position in my life. They can only be accessed if a program needs to go to that spot in the registry and use that entry. If nothing accesses, it's just a dead entry. Now, one thing though, registries can get big, and back in Windows 95, maybe even Windows 7, the size of the registry could really cause you problems. I don't know if that's the case anymore with Windows 10. Jeff, I played with registry cleaners back in XP days, but no more. In my humble opinion, the registry is a bad idea. I prefer the use of resource files like Unix, Linux uses, but that's not how Windows World works. I could have an academic discussion with you about that, although I wouldn't consider myself large authority on it. Before the registry came along, we had win.ini, system.ini, and progman.ini. I want to say there was another one. And that's how Windows 3.11 handled configuration topics. I think registry, which was a much better way of doing it. And the Linux world of how they handle that, I think there's some downsides to that method. But for the type of person, the type of technical mind that uses Linux, I think it's probably preferred. And it may wind up causing you an issue like it is during the updates. Chris says, I understand. Maybe giveaway channel. Okay, how much time am I going to spend on managing a giveaway channel? I'm sorry, I can't afford to do that. Now, I have given the computers to other people who want to fix them up and do something productive with them. One of them was my brother Stan. I gave him a whole bunch of computers because he used to be kind of sort of getting into the tech world. And he was a Dell on-site service person for a while, working for a contract company that Dell would send them out to fix computers. So I gave him a whole bunch of computers. I think he wound up dumping most of them somehow. And I also had my ADT, was an alarm system for my home. The technician that came out to install upgrade my alarm last time I had that done, he became aware of the computers I had, and he told me that he had been doing some of the kind of work, so I gave him a bunch of them. But currently, I don't have anybody who locally will take them off my hands. I'm not going to ship them away. That's time to do it and money to ship. Rick, I agree with you, Doug, on that one. Give away a free computer, old or unfixable. I have to go to my e-waste pile. Some places have organizations with refurbished donated computers. Yeah, well, that's another thing that I've been doing is I've been giving them to, I don't know if it's Goodwill or Salvation Army. Before COVID, they were taking electronics. And I was told by them that they actually go to the e-waste recycling facility that I had been taking them to directly. But after COVID, they stopped taking them. At least last time I checked, they weren't taking them. I'm getting close to ending here, and I'm going to stop taking questions. I'm not seeing questions here specifically about this repair operation. So, and then these three are Lawn Dog. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. I will go read the other comments that come in between now and when I actually hit the button. And Lawn Dog, I did see your comments at the beginning. I've already read those. Those are on a completely different topic, so I'm not going to address those now. So, Ken, I hope you're ready, because here they come. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope that's been useful. Have a good day. Catch you later. Goodbye.